Remove the coil pack cover. Remove the coil packs. Start removing harnesses. Take off all the nuts for the valve cover. Take off this hose. Remove the valve cover from the rear bank. Remove the ground from the front bank valve cover. Remove this wiring harness bracket here from that bolt. Push to the side. Remove this hose right here. Remove the upper timing cover on the rear bank. It's 10 mil there. And there's one hidden on the other side of this. This also has a wire harness clip on it. There's another one back there. Can't see it with the camera, but it's right at the bottom, right down there. To take off the front bank cover, it appears that you have to take off this bracket for the alternator, which they appear to be two 10s or 12s and a 14, and then that's a 10, that's a 10, that's a 10 for that wire harness. Same thing right there. In order to do the LMAs, I believe I have to take off these cam covers. This is a cam cover, that's a cam cover. Then I believe the cam seals are going to be replaced. I don't know which way I pull out the rockers. It might be this direction. I may have to take off the actual cam gear to pull them that way, unless they go that way out of where the cam seal is. I don't know yet. I'll find out, but it looks like I'm going to have to remove all of these on the intake and the exhaust side. And then I have the upgraded LMAs, which when I peek in there, it looks like they're not upgraded. So this will be fun. I'm thinking it's a really good thing I pulled this motor out when I did, because there is a lot of slack on this timing belt. Yeah, I don't think it's... I'm lucky I didn't skip a tooth. So regarding timing belts, so I'm gonna order my clutch discs, and while I'm waiting for those to come in, I'm gonna start tearing down the rest of this thing and doing the timing belt, the water pump, and the LMAs, and welding the butterfly screws inside the intake manifold. LMAs are lost motion assemblies. They're little springs down in here. You won't be able to see them with these cam covers on, but I'm gonna take those off. The cams have to come out, the cam gears have to come out. The old style of lost motion assemblies were in sleeves, and over time they can get stuck, and you'll get rattly sounds like sticky lifter kind of sound, loud valve noise, clicking. So I have upgraded ones which are just springs without sleeves. I'm going to put those in. I've never done this before, so it's a learning process for me too. I'll probably do things that have to be undone, or I'll take off things that are unnecessary. But I'm going to do the timing belt and water pump as well. And one way to inspect your timing belt, which honestly, if you're going to take it apart, just replace it anyway. But you can actually see shiny marks. See these little lines here? And those are the teeth on the other side. And one way to tell if a timing belt is bad is if you could see these lines. So if you could tell where the teeth are from this side of the belt, that's not a good thing. And you can obviously tell. Another thing is teeth will sometimes get worn down or break off. I'm not sure if this is an issue here, but I think I already showed this, how I had slack here when I moved it to go to top dead center. Now the slack is here, and there's quite a bit of slack, really easy to move. So that slack moves around depending on where I have the timing, apparently. But either way, I don't think you don't want slack anywhere. I could be wrong about that, but I don't believe you do. So I will get into that. And they say you can't tell if a timing belt is good by looking at it. You can tell if it's bad but you can never tell if it's good. So even if there's not any signs of it being bad that tell you it's bad, doesn't mean it's not bad, and it doesn't mean it's good. So okay, so it looks like the first step to taking off the intake manifold cover is these appear to be 8mm, and Allen keys here, and we'll see what's lying underneath. Underneath the cover is 4 10mm. So I'm just thinking out loud here, kind of going over my process, and this is basically what I've been doing this entire time. But now that I've removed the fuel rail covers and the intake manifold cover, it appears that the intake manifold and the throttle body and everything can be removed in one piece. It looks like I can even leave the injectors in. I will, however, have to unplug them. Again, old brittle plastic clips that are 25 years old, so not going to be fun. But it looks like I could lift the fuel rails up right on top of the injectors, right on top of the intake manifold. There is this hard line here, I think that's an EGR. There's definitely going to be intake manifold gaskets, and it appears as though there's a gasket here for this that I'll have to replace as well. So now to actually lift it up, it looks as though there is a 12mm there, there, and there. One more, so 4 there, so there's probably a 4th underneath this ground here, so I'll have to dig a little deeper. Yeah, I can see it, so it's right behind these wires here. You can't see it on camera, but there's another one there I'll have to get to. And I'll just undo those 8 12mm, and I will see when I lift up. I'll undo this as well. I'll see when I lift up a little bit if it comes up easy. It may not because of the gasket, but the goal here is to see what else is holding it on. So I got those out. Further clarification on the outside corners of the intake manifold are actually studs, so they'll be nuts. So there's 4 nuts, 4 bolts. You'll want to remove this clip right here. You'll want to remove this ground. So I'm going to remove the fuel injector plugs, try to leave the fuel rails and the injectors in. Not that it's hard to take off the fuel rails and pull those up with the injectors, and that makes it a little easier to get to the clips. And these clips have a little metal thing going around them, and that makes it a little more of a pain. But I'm going to attempt to do it with it on there, and the way I do it is I take a little pick or a small precision flathead and I stick it down on the corner and just pry this way, and then I try to lift it up that way and then unplug the thing. You don't want to lose your metal clips, by the way, so put them in a bag. So I try to put my bolts back where I got them from. What I can't, I put in bags and label them in a box. I put these 8mm that were holding the fuel rail covers, these plastic guys right here, back, and apparently that's okay, but I also have to take off this lower stud here to get off these plastic brackets for this wiring harness on both sides, because I won't be able to lift the intake manifold out with all the wiring still connected to this umbilical cord unless I take all the wiring off, which I guess I could. It's just a few more clips, but in this case it's easier just to take off those 4, I believe. Now also, I thought the intake manifold was going to separate at this seam here above the throttle mechanism here, drive-by wire, but when I lift up at the intake manifold, it's actually lifting up from lower and taking all that with it. So I'm going to remove those, and I'll try to gently lift straight up and see if that's the last of it. Hopefully it is. If not, whatever we're caught on, I'll remove also. So now that I've removed these rears there off of the fuel rail for this wiring bracket, I can unplug this right here. And just pull it right out of the way. So as far as these, I believe they're secondary air intake hoses, there's a number 5 one here going to this valve. I think that's the EGR valve. And this is going to have to come off over there because it's keeping me from going up. I find the easiest way to remove these hoses is just to take a flathead, and then you can kind of put it up against it and push, and there it is. Since I'm taking off the throttle body with the intake manifold, any hoses that are going to it, like this one, are going to have to come off. And let's see, on this side, this one's gonna have to come off. I don't know what this is, but it's cut. Yeah, whatever. Oh, and this plug. Also, both igniter plugs here and here have to come off. This clip I removed also has a little ground wire going right there. You gotta take that off. Okay, so the intake manifold's off now. The butterflies are inside the intake manifold. I put it over there. Has to be opened up a little more to get to them. In the meantime, you don't want these intake ports open to the elements. You see all these leaves and stuff there. You don't want that stuff getting, or anything else, dropping a screw in there. It'll go into your engine. You'll have big problems. So what I do is take shop towels and just stick them in, all 6 of them, and that way nothing can fall in there. So these gaskets are going to have to be replaced. That gasket's going to have to be replaced. And I believe my next step is to take off these grade 8 bolts, that nut, those grade 8 bolts. It looks like there's going to be another gasket here, so I'll have to replace that as well. It's the mechanism that opens up the butterflies. You can see the other side's turning over here. So I'm gonna open it up. They are different size bolts here. You got 3 shorter ones, 5 longer ones. They each have washers, and then you have your nuts with the washers. And this lifts up and exposes the butterflies and the butterfly screws. Oh, look at that. I am so glad I opened this now, because that thing can ruin your engine. I just saw it on this side. I saw the threads sticking out, but not on that one. And there it is. Look how far that thing backed out. So that could be catastrophic engine failure. Essentially, if it gets stuck in a valve or something, or hits a piston, that's not a fun time. Might just get embedded in the piston. Maybe you wouldn't even notice, but it could lead to big problems. So I'm very glad that I opened this up. Highly recommended. 10 out of 10. Fun NSX fact: a lot of people know the car and the body and the engine is made out of mostly aluminum, but the intake manifold is actually made out of magnesium. It's very lightweight. This doesn't weigh much at all.